Hello, guys. This is Nikki, and you're listening to At Faces Trader, featured in Awesome 10X YouTube channel. For the day, let me share to you May 19, 2020, Tuesday, what's happening in the Philippine market. So I think the most attractive question in most people's eyes is why did macro Asia go up 28% for this Tuesday? I think you have to understand what happened last night. So last night in USA, Moderna vaccine mRNA. So I'm gonna show you the chart. mRNA, which was funded by Bill Gates, got a vaccine for human trials, spurring the market to assume that, and then afterwards, after the market ended, Moderna got a $1 billion stock offering at $76 to further make these vaccines, which were already proven with human trials, human clinical test trials. Because of this news, a lot of your airlines worldwide actually jumped from about 10% to about 20%. So Delta Airlines is up 13%. You've got United Airlines up about 21%. You've got American Airlines going up about 10%. So as a sector, you actually saw plenty of companies go up in the airline sector, going up about between 10, the average was 11% uh, for the entire airline space. Whatever airline it was up 10%, 11% within the day. Similarly, all your cruise lines were up 10%. We even saw like this one, Carnival Corporation, 15% up in a single day. You'll notice that all of these stocks got decimated about 70, 80, 90%, because of the entire travel industry getting hammered due to this coronavirus. With a vaccine, people are hopeful that this vaccine will allow people to go back to at least go back to normal and at least try to travel. Take a look at what happened with Disney, for instance. Disney actually shot up 9% on that news, closed at 116. We can consider all the companies that went up. I'm going to read to you the entire news bit about what happened last night. Wait up. I'm going to read that here. Okay. So here, all the airlines rallied 11 to 24% up yesterday on the back of travel data. 254,000 people have shown an uptick on demand coming. Among the other three airlines within the Dow Transports, shares of Southwest Airlines, LUV, up 13%. JetBlue Airways surged 9%. Alaska Air Group, ALK, 13%. Southwest stock, which enjoyed the biggest one-day gain since March 13, had closed Friday at the lowest level since April 2014. So basically, after a 5-year low, it's a multiple-year low, they got their best gain in a single day the next day. Same for elsewhere. Spirit Airlines saved plus 24% after closing Friday at a record low. Hawaiian Airlines up 20%, Delta Airlines up 12%. Investors can expect some more news on industry demand as a representative from a number of airlines are expected to also give research and global transportation conference beginning this Tuesday. So that's Tuesday evening. That's about 9:30 p.m. Philippine time. Similarly, you could see even the cruise operators, they soared yesterday pre-market trading. They got an extension of their winning streak to about 3 sessions. It was part of a broad market rally. Just to explain, about 1,900 stocks in the U.S. market opened upwards last night on this on data that Moderna vaccine, which is mRNA, has a cure. So it would show that people can get cured if they do contract COVID-19. This, as well as the start of the reopening of businesses, upbeat comments from the Federal Reserve Chairman saying they have more ammunition, have triggered a major bull market last night. Last night, the Dow Jones was up 1,000 points. This was like top of already significant rally. So shares of Royal Caribbean Cruises up 16%, Norwegian Cruise Lines up 8%, Carnival Corp plus 15%, still climbing 10%. So the cruise stocks, the airline stock, everywhere where the sentiment really hit bottom, you've seen a lot of buybacks. And I would say that this got triggered primarily as well by some people who were probably caught short in the stay out stocks. They became the favorite last night. You actually saw a couple of really outstanding gains. As you could see, this was what happened last night, and because of that overall advanced move, you could see that we actually got a reverse move in the Philippines. When you look at your index, the statistics will tell you last night, yesterday, Philippines was very, very strong. And I'm not going to say that today is actually strong, but we just simply had a bounce on many oversold companies. Take note that Macro Asia was actually hitting your 52-week new low yesterday. In fact, yesterday, you've got about 8 52-week new lows. So just like how airlines abroad, after triggering 5-year, multi-year new lows, actually had their best day the next day, either through short covering or essentially people seeing that, okay, since travel is going to return again, then we can probably nibble when it's about 3 times PE ratio and so forth. So that's what you could see with what happened with Delta Airlines and a lot of cruise lines. So today in the most active trades, you could see that Macro Asia got top 7. Macro Asia doesn't trade 100 million ordinarily. And I'll show you that this strong move by Macro Asia is triggering people to actually bargain hunt, despite the fact that Macro Asia is a delete. It is a delete in your MSCI Morgan Stanley Composite Index. So based on the market situation, you could see that even if M-wide was also deleted, a lot of people are also trying to bargain hunt mega-wide up 2%, not significant, but it tells me that all the 52-week new lows yesterday are at least getting some bargain hunting reprieve. So you could actually see that the market is somehow wanting to buy the really heavily oversold names, especially the ones that became victims of your COVID. Now I've seen this abroad. Abroad, even the supermarkets, even the restaurants. Sorry, not supermarkets. Even the restaurants are actually doing so well. For instance, Chipotle hit $1,000. Now, I'm not here to discuss about US. I will be in another update 5 p.m. today. But this is just to tell Filipinos that how the USA works can actually upgrade your information advantage for the Philippine market when you're trading. Just the knowledge that airlines, Moderna vaccine has triggered a worldwide rally, it actually is enough for you to assume that with a risk reward in the Philippines for Macro Asia at low, that you could actually start nibbling. And I think that's really what happened with Macro Asia. Now, why is it that Cebu Pacific didn't rise? I would say that it's because perhaps some people were still waiting for a new low on Cebu Pacific. Perhaps they were waiting at 35. But with an overall market jump for Delta Airlines, United Airlines, all of these cruise liners, is you want to check out whether Cebu Airlines would actually start turning around, just as all the travel-related companies worldwide, quote unquote, the bad stocks, could have their could have maybe a 3-day or 5-day rally on the positive side. So on the travel data, it actually bottomed at about March. Tourists, 50,000 on the airline space that are traveling. So they are hopeful that they've already seen the bottom, and that's what's triggering a worldwide worldwide rally on your airline sector at the moment. And it's actually positive, not just for airlines, but also for all the stay out stocks, whether it be casinos. We've seen the same thing happen abroad. Restaurants also, which were victims, also went up abroad. So I would say that it was overall in the USA, it was quite a broad-based rally. All the specific groups were very strong. Like just for a day, you could notice that energy actually had a strong move, like a one day 7%. From a sector standpoint, the ones that got really badly beaten, basic materials, energy, they got really, really well. Now, as for technology, we've had a really, really number of great earnings. So uh, those were just really blow off the roof, like SE. We've had like JD last week. Then people are already putting in some great numbers for Alibaba and Pinduoduo, which will report on Friday this week. So overall, I'd say that the bullishness of US actually translated in bullishness in your Philippines, which means that your statistics today is obviously on the upside. Advancers would be higher, but you could see here that advances were 90, decliners are 80, meaning, and we still have four new 52-week lows. So despite the strength on a few airline sector, I'd say that in the Philippines, we are still too slow in a broad-based recovery. Perhaps the Philippines is not hopeful that we can get these Moderna virus vaccines in our nation immediately. But I think worldwide, they are very hopeful for this drug. So you could see an overall ascent. Now, we could probably see it translate to gains on the bad companies because, yeah, we've seen it abroad. Like retailers were rising about 10%, just so you can see, no? Just for chart purposes. The Capri Holdings, this one is the owner of Jimmy Choo Shoes, the owner of Michael Kors bags, and another brand, Versace. So these are luxury items and apparel and fashion, but it's actually up. It's considered consumer cyclicals. As a sector, consumer cyclicals were rallying yesterday. That's an 11% pop for Capri. You could see Kate Spade and Coach also getting about 10% moves. After a retest of triple retest, you've got a rally. You can see as well for PVH. PVH is your Calvin Klein. Tommy Hilfiger also up 10%. People decided that toys were not really a good thing, but you could see last night 15% up. So essentially, all the badly beaten names have really strongly risen on that news that Moderna vaccine could actually help the most heavily battered industries. So just so you know which are the heavily battered industries, it's very easy. You just go to Stats Analytical, you go to a 12-month percent change. Let's say you want to go all, which means all stocks. It's no-brainer why Macro Asia got one of the best moves today, because when you look at the worst moves for the year, it would be Macro Asia, Megawide, Tech, SSI. So we'll see whether the other names will eventually go up, but it also tells you that the market doesn't want to buy strong names, because when you look at the strong names, yes, there are many here, but these are not index names. And so I would say that the market is waiting for a couple of badly hit sectors to actually produce some good data or at least some recovery, and the market will actually follow. I'd say that today's move is more for Macro Asia is one of the possibilities that could trigger a move even for Cebu Pacific. It can trigger a move even for Bloomberry, even for your SSI, because these companies were also badly hit by the virus, which could actually start to recover knowing that there is a vaccine being produced. And that's $1 billion of shares now being offered by Moderna for all the investors that wants to continue producing the vaccines. Now, in general, in the Philippines, I would say that earnings was pretty okay. Let's look at earnings. So today East West actually managed to report their earnings report. Here's wait lang. I saw earnings for East West. So they are actually just like all the banks. You could see that just like yesterday, Philippine National Bank reported a very big provision for COVID losses, just in case, as a bank, you have to be conservative. So East West also, let's just read this. East West Bank revised its revenue projections this year after allocating markedly higher reserves for non-performing loans amid potential losses due to the COVID-19. The Gotyanan-led bank said that they've downgraded their profit guidance for 2020 as the bottom line is likely to be dragged by bad loans. We're looking forward to another record year, at least 8 billion pesos in income for 2020 until COVID-19 struck. Now we have to be ready that profits could be lower this year. We have to book anticipative provisions for loan losses, and we may need continue doing so in the coming months as the economic damage to households and businesses from this disruption unfolds. So actually, this isn't anything new. All the banks have been increasing their loan buffers by nearly either threefold, fivefold, tenfold, just so they can understand what's the exposure. So for East West, for instance, they increased their loan loss buffer by nearly threefold to about 2.4 billion pesos. Sure, their earnings for the 3 months soared by 75% to 2.3 billion due to the improved margins from their core lending and deposit-taking business, higher trading gains. ROE was 18%. Revenues was up 45% to 9.6 billion. As you could see, most of the banks actually reported great numbers, but the problem is in the future. So most of their outlook guidance is very murky because it's very hard for them to assess how much is really gonna be a loss if those loans are not able to, if they cannot recover those loans. So I think they were saying that the pandemic is unprecedented with no historical guide to anchor on. It's very difficult to estimate bad debts. So the bank's revenues and net income stood at 28.7 billion and 6.24 billion pesos respectively. Shares finished at about 7 pesos amid the drop of the benchmark index on Monday. So as you could see, the banks in general are still weak. I'll show you charts on the banks. The earnings of the banks are more on anticipatory for the future. So you could see that East West is still sliding on your 52-week lows point, just due to the impact of COVID, because nobody can really tell how bad would it be. So let's take a look at all the banks, so just so everyone can see. You could see that BDO is still teetering, even if it's up about 93. We can still see that it is heavily damaged at a break of 100. So you still see a lot of resistances at 100 for BDO. Now, for BPI, we said the losses are about 50. It's actually now trading at 62. But it's still very weak. You could see that BPI was 85. This is still a very weak recovery, showing that the sector for the banks in general is really still in a hot mess. Take a look in Security Bank. Security Bank is actually one of the victims as well of COVID-19 and MSCI deleted. We mentioned that Security Bank might retest 80. So far, it's trading at 86. Whether it retests 80 or breaks down, we really don't know. But the impact of the MSCI deletion can trigger a lot of negative short-term sentiment for Security Bank. Plus, the sector in itself is really in trouble. Now, that estimate is quite hard to say. What I'm saying is everyone is just speculating about the provisions for losses. We really don't know whether the banks will indeed have these losses. So it's really more of a guessing game, even for the banks, on how much guidance on their outlook would be. But this just tells you that your Philippine index is really weakening because of your entire financial sector. So you could see like your top banks actually sliding, if not at 52-week lows, it's already breaking down new lows. For instance, Metro Bank had a low of about 32 here, and that is your Metro Bank 4000 index PSEI. So even when index is at 5.5, you can tremendously see how laggard Metro Bank is. This is called a weak spot because nobody can tell how much provisions for losses Metro Bank really has. So with all the other banks reporting uncertainty, the market is selling down all the banks due to that. Whether it recovers, it's going to be time. You have to wait about 3 to 6 months. So we could say that even if the airlines have made a good rebound today, not just in the macro Asia but also worldwide, please note that the long term moves are still very murky. So they want a bounce, but whether that bounce can stop at 5 or can it go higher, it now remains on a risk-reward standpoint whether there continues to be people who'd like to buy the airline move, or will they play other social distancing victims that are equally affected. So for instance, we were saying that casinos are a natural victim because of COVID. And so far, we're seeing actually that this has high volume and staying strong at 5. So in the past few days, we're actually seeing Bloomberry report better than, actually for me, better than expected earnings, because I was expecting really bad. Bloomberry traded at the gave 1.4 billion pesos in its first quarter report. Although they're saying that they don't know what their next 3 quarters are, the fact that a company can continually earn 1 billion in a quarter is still a magnanimous company in my view. And even with the impact of COVID, 1 billion income was just made in about 2 months, because practically March there wasn't any sales at all. So what else can you see? Okay, so a lot of companies haven't reported earnings yet, so we don't know how badly affected SSI Group is. Naturally, SSI Group has been in malls, and since malls were closed, they definitely couldn't operate. Whether their transition to e-commerce and a lot of deliveries can help them out, we shall see in the next couple of weeks or months once they report earnings. So far, Pure Gold has sent a material information that they will report their annual report not later than June 15. So it was in the PSE Edge. And so yeah, they said that they had approved the annual report. They had a shareholders meeting, and they'll wait for some time to finish their accounts, perhaps. And then we also saw Mrs. G actually give more insight on their earnings. They were saying that for the first quarter 2020, part of the problems were related to the impact of COVID-19. So let's read from their standpoint. They said this: the net sales amounted to 8.5 billion, which is a 10% increase due to the growth of the food retail business. In fact, food retail increased by 19% over the same period as last year due to the effect of the ECQ. However, while blended store sales reflected a year of 3%, total general merchandise business declined by 10% due to COVID-related disruption in all the department stores. So take note that Mrs. G is not a pure supermarket. They do have department stores, and I think that was one of the reasons that they didn't do well in their earnings report. So as they said, Mrs. G is affirming its commitment to the customers, employees, shareholders, and since the MCQ has started, Metro Gaisano has been recognized for food safety and sanitation processes. And so they're also doing their first phase of its e-commerce program, which where customers can order products via call, text, and online. They've also forged partnerships with online grocery operators to make their products available to all the growing communities that they serve. So Gaisano is heavily in Luzon, Visayas, and I think they have about 53 stores, if my recollection is correct. And this is one of the best news. They have approved 200 million pesos of cash dividends, which is 6 centavos for everyone who's still on record as of the end of the month, May 29, and to be paid on June 15, 2020. The company also has a healthy balance sheet with cash resources amounting to 2.45 billion pesos. I would say that this pandemic has actually affected their company. They're saying that last year's core income was actually a bit of how should I say this? It was an anomaly because last year they got a last tranche of insurance recovery, which was about 104. So this year's 104 million versus 190 million a year ago. That explains your 97 million non-core income decrease. Um, so that is one reason why their net income for this period has declined uh, versus last year. Now, we could say that Mrs. G traditionally, if you look at it from a 3-year, 5-year line, not just one quarter, it should be earning somewhere between um, anywhere from about 700 to 900 million pesos a year. So we'll take a look on the next 3 quarters. The fact that they have a lot of cash resources tells you that the company's operations are highly intact and they are opening their stores soon in GCQ, under the GCQ and MECQ, which partly can explain why there was a temporary reprieve instead of falling all the way down. I guess most people have felt that the drop from about 2 to 160, which is 20%, is enough of a pullback for some bargain hunters who still wants a supermarket. So no change in view. Yeah, so in the Philippines, we have more. I would say that you could see that the market wants to go up, but you have a lot of banks pulling you down. So until the banks finally get some footing, then you could see the market do something better. Also, the Philippines is heavily weighted with your SM, your BDOs. So it has to do with mall operations. So I would say that when you see SM Prime, BDO start giving a lot of buy signals, you could probably see the market start recovering. But the market is not yet in a very, very strong bullish mode, unlike in the USA where everything is, it's pick any airline, it goes up. Pick any cruise move, it goes up. Pick any retailer, it goes up. Pick restaurants, it goes up. So we don't have that move yet, but I could tell you that worldwide, even the bad companies are actually now going up. So it's a breather. I think even for the energy companies, you might want to check energy companies like your Petron, your Shell Philippines, because yeah, so the heavily battered companies might actually surprise on the upside, given the overall worldwide sentiment. So yeah, so this is your update for Tuesday. I hope that you would listen again to our daily market updates. See you again tomorrow. With that, thank you. Bye-bye.